Pop, I'm bringing Sasha's parents down to your place for the entire month of August. That's fine, right? Oh, and we'll be carrying some supplies. So just leave the spare key with the neighbor. When I heard those words from my son over the phone, I stayed silent for a few seconds. I took a deep breath and replied, "That's fine, son. Come on down." But what he didn't know was that I had my own plans too. My name is Elijah Stone, but everybody calls me Pop E. I'm 68 years old. I worked for 38 years as a long-haul truck driver, crisscrossing this country from coast to coast. I was born in a tiny, humble spot in rural Mississippi, the son of folks who worked on other people's land their whole lives. I learned early that nobody gives you anything for free in this world. Everything I have, I earned with the sweat of my brow on the road, far from home, sleeping in the truck's cab, and eating cold convenience store meals. I married my wife, Ruth, when I was 25. She was a school cafeteria manager. Together we raised our son, Marcus. We lived our whole lives in Memphis, Tennessee. Ruth passed away 2 years ago. Cancer took her fast, and when she left, I felt completely lost. The house was too big. The silence was too heavy. That's when I made a decision. I retired. I sold the house we lived in for more than 30 years. I pulled everything I had and bought a simple house on Seabrook Island, South Carolina, right near the coast. 3 bedrooms, a little patio close to the beach. It was my dream. It was the place where I was finally going to rest. Before I continue this story, I want to thank the Elder Wisdom Network for giving me this opportunity to share what happened to me. And I ask you, the listener, to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and tell us in the comments what city you're listening from. That helps the channel grow a lot. And seriously, stick around until the end, because this story has a twist you won't see coming. Marcus's call came on a Thursday morning. I was sitting on the porch, sipping coffee, watching the ocean, and soaking up the peace I'd dreamed of for so long. The phone rang. It was him. We hadn't truly talked in over a month. I always called, always asked how he was, how the kids, Jordan and Skylar, were doing. He always answered quickly, always rushed, always with that tone that said he was too busy to talk to his own father. But this time was different. This time, he called. And the minute I answered, I knew by his voice he wanted something. "What's up, Pop? Everything good?" he started. I told him everything was fine. I asked about him, Sasha, and the grandkids. He answered on autopilot. And then it came. "Hey, Pop, I'm calling because we're planning our vacation. Sasha and I want to take her parents to the beach. They've never been. And since you have that house down there on Seabrook, we thought we'd spend the month of August with you. It's cool, right? It'll be great. The kids will be happy." I stared out at the ocean, the waves breaking on the sand, the wind hitting my face, and the realization sank in slowly. My son hadn't come to visit me even once since I bought this house. Not once. He didn't call to see if I was okay. He didn't ask if I needed help. He showed zero interest in the place his own father chose to live out the rest of his life. But now he wanted to bring his in-laws to stay for a whole month in my house. A whole month. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. It was sadness, mixed with the feeling that I was being used. "Pop, you there?" he asked on the other end. "I am," I replied. "So, is it cool?" I took a deep breath, thought fast, and said, "Come on down, son." "No problem." He sounded happy. "Ah, that's great, Pop. Thanks. Seriously. Sasha's going to be so happy. Her parents are dying to see the beach. We're going to bring some things, some groceries, you know. Just leave the key with a neighbor so we can grab it when we arrive. Deal?" And that's when I asked, just to be sure I heard right, "Leave the key with the neighbor. You don't want me to greet you, son?" He chuckled. Pop, we're going to get there early Saturday morning. You'll want to sleep in, right? And besides, it'll just be easier. We'll pick up the key, go in, put our stuff away. No need to bother you." "No need to bother you." That's what he said, as if I were a nuisance. As if the presence of him and his family in my house shouldn't involve the owner of the house. As if I were just the guy who had the key. I stayed quiet for a few seconds, and then I said, "Okay, Marcus, I'll leave the key." He thanked me, said he'd text me the trip details later, and hung up. I stood there, holding the phone in my hand, staring at the horizon. And that's when I started thinking. Truly thinking. That house cost me everything I'd saved my whole life. Every brick, every door, every window held my sweat. I fixed it up myself. I painted walls, even as my back ached. I fixed the plumbing with my knees protesting. I got up on a ladder at 67 years old to repair the roof. All of it, because this was my refuge, my place. The spot where I was going to finally have peace after a lifetime on the highway, working like a dog and to support my family. And now, my son wanted to use this house like an Airbnb, as if he were doing me a favor, without even truly asking, without visiting before, just telling me he was coming, and ordering me to leave the key with the neighbor. I got up from the chair, went inside, headed to the bedroom, opened the closet, and started sorting my clothes. Because in that moment, I made a decision. One I knew would cause trouble. One I knew Marcus wouldn't like. But one I needed to make. Because sometimes in life, you have to teach people the value of things and the value of respect. I was going to leave the key for my son, yes, but not in the way he expected. I spent the rest of that Thursday organizing everything. I packed my things, got my suitcase ready, and called a good friend of mine from Memphis, Anthony Tony Washington, a buddy I met back in my trucking days. He had a ranch up near Asheville, North Carolina. We always said I'd visit, but we never got around to it. I called him. "Tony, is that offer you made for me to spend a few days at the ranch still good?" He laughed on the other end. "Sure is, Poppy. When are you coming?" I replied, "Next week. I'll be there a good while. I need to disappear for a bit." He thought it was funny, but he accepted. We finalized all the details. On Friday, I spent the day preparing the house, but not in the way Marcus imagined. I didn't make up the guest rooms. I didn't set out towels. I didn't fill the fridge. I did the opposite. I emptied the refrigerator, disconnected the gas, put away the towels, locked the bedrooms from the inside, and on the front door, I put a new heavy-duty padlock, one of those that doesn't open easily. Inside the house, I locked everything else too, every room, every cabinet, as if the house had been sealed. Because in a way, that's exactly what I did. I sealed my house, my space, and my peace. Early Saturday morning, before the sun was fully up, I put my suitcase in the car and drove out of Seabrook Island. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't leave a note. I didn't text Marcus. I just left. I hit the highway heading toward North Carolina. And as I drove, with the sun rising in the rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like I had done the right thing. I felt like, for the first time in forever, I had set a boundary. Because respect, my friend, is not something you beg for. It's something you earn. And sometimes It's something you have to teach. Around 10 o'clock that morning, when I was already hundreds of miles away, my cell phone started ringing. It was Marcus. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again, and again, message after message. I glanced at it from time to time, but I didn't respond. I just kept driving with a slight smile on my face, because now the surprise had been delivered. The cell phone wouldn't stop ringing. It vibrated on the passenger seat as I drove down the interstate, that road I knew by heart, which I'd traveled hundreds of times carrying cargo. But this time was different. This time I was free, without commitments, without obligations, and most importantly, without letting myself be used. I let the phone ring maybe 10 more times before picking it up just to see the messages. There were tons, all from Marcus. "Pop, call me. Pop, I'm trying to reach you. Pop, we got here to Seabrook, and the house is locked up. What's going on? Call me ASAP." I read them all and didn't reply. I started driving again because in that moment, I wanted him to feel a little bit of what I felt when he treated me like a hotel. I wanted him to understand that there was a lack of respect, a lack of consideration, and a lack of a son's love. I stopped at a gas station near Knoxville, Tennessee. I filled the tank, bought a cup of coffee, and sat at a plastic table outside, watching the highway traffic. Big rigs passing, family cars coming and going, life moving on. And there I was, for the first time in a long time, feeling like I had taken control of my own life. The phone rang again. This time I answered. It was Marcus, and his voice was already frantic. "Pop, where are you? We got here, and the whole house is locked up." "There's a padlock on the door." What happened? I took a sip of coffee, breathed deep, and replied, with the calmest voice in the world. "What happened is I went on a trip, son." Silence on the other end. I could hear his heavy breathing. I could feel the anger building. "What do you mean, you went on a trip?" "We planned to spend our vacation there. I brought my in-laws. The kids are here. We drove all the way from Memphis. And you just went on a trip?" I answered calmly. "I went on a trip, son. I went to visit a friend in North Carolina. I'm going to be there for a while." He exploded. "But Pop, couldn't you have told us? We planned everything. We took time off work. My in-laws were looking forward to this. How could you do something like that?" I stopped, put the coffee down on the table, and spoke in a voice I hadn't used in years. A firm voice. A father's voice. "Marcus, you told me you were coming." He stammered. "What?" I repeated myself. "You told me you were coming. You informed me that you had already decided everything." Silence. "Did you ask me if I wanted company? If it was a good time for me? If I was prepared to have 6 people inside my house for an entire month?" He tried to answer, but I didn't let him. "No, son, you didn't ask. You informed me. You said you were bringing your in-laws to spend a month in my house. And you told me to leave the key with the neighbor, as if I were the doorman." I heard him take a shaky breath on the other side. I heard Sasha saying something in the background. I heard the noise of the children, and I continued. "You haven't come to visit me even once since I bought this house. Not once. You didn't call to ask if I was well. You showed no interest. But when you needed a free beach house for your vacation, suddenly you remembered I exist." His voice was low. "That's not it, Pop." I replied, "Yes, it is, Marcus. It's exactly that. And you know what I have learned in these 68 years of mine? That you don't show respect only when you need something. You show respect always, or not at all." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking a little, My heart was pounding hard. Because talking to your own son like that isn't easy, right? You raise your children with so much love, so much sacrifice, that when a moment like this comes, you feel like you're failing somehow. But I wasn't the one who had failed. It was him. And he needed to understand that. I finished my coffee, got back in the car, and continued the drive. About 2 hours later, I arrived at Tony's ranch near Asheville. The place was beautiful. A simple little house, surrounded by fields, a small creek running behind it, chickens in the yard, and the kind of silence you only find far from the city. Tony greeted me with that powerful hug that only true friends give. "What's up, man? I thought you were never going to show up." I hugged him back. "Well, Tony, finally made it." He looked at me with that knowing look. "You run in from something?" I smiled. "I ran away from disrespect." We spent the afternoon talking. I told him everything, from Marcus's call to the locked house. Tony listened, shaking his head. When I finished, he said something that stuck with me. "Poppy, you did the right thing. A son doesn't own his father, and a father isn't obligated to put up with disrespect. Sometimes you gotta teach the other person that you deserve respect too." And that was exactly it. I hadn't done it out of spite. I had done it out of necessity. The necessity to be seen, the necessity to be respected, the necessity to show that I still had value. Night fell. We ate a simple dinner that Tony's wife, Ms. Della, had prepared. Red beans and rice, farm-raised chicken, and fresh cornbread. The kind of food that warms the soul. After dinner, I sat on the ranch porch, looking at the stars. My cell phone stayed in the room, silent. I knew there must be more messages, more calls. But that night, I didn't want to know. I just wanted to be there in the quiet, enjoying the peace I had chosen to have. Before going to sleep, I went to the room and grabbed the phone. I had 23 messages. 23. Some from Marcus, some from Sasha, and even one from Skylar, my 9-year-old granddaughter. That squeezed my heart. I opened her message. "Grandpa, where are you? We wanted to see you." I read that and felt the guilt hit me because the children weren't at fault. They hadn't done anything. They were innocent in this whole story. But at the same time, I knew that if I gave in now, if I rushed back, nothing would change. Marcus would keep treating me the way he had, and I would continue to be the old man who was only useful when it was convenient. I woke up the next day to the rooster crowing. 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was just rising, that soft light coming through the bedroom window. I got up, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. Ms. Della was already there, brewing coffee. The smell of homemade biscuits in the oven. The smell of fresh brewed coffee. Simple things you forget exist when you're always rushing. I sat at the table, and she served me. "Sleep well, Poppy?" I smiled. "Better than I expected, Miss Della." She looked at me with that motherly look that knows when you're carrying a burden. "Tony told me what happened. Don't blame yourself. Your son needs to learn." I drank my coffee in silence. Warm biscuit with butter, strong coffee, that moment of peace I needed. But my mind wouldn't stop. It kept going back to Skylar's message, to the other messages. I grabbed the phone again and opened the ones I hadn't read. Sasha had sent one. "Poppy, I don't know what happened between you and Marcus, but the kids are sad. We drove a long way. My parents were excited. It shouldn't have been like this." I read that and felt a tightening in my chest. But then came another message from Marcus. And this one was different. "Pop, you let me down. We always respected you, and you do this to us. My in-laws don't understand anything. We had to find a hotel. The kids cried, congratulations. Congratulations. That's how he ended it. If I had done it on purpose, just to hurt him, as if he hadn't done anything wrong, as if I were the villain in the story. I dropped the phone on the table. Ms. Della noticed. Bad news? I shook my head. Expected news. She sat on the other side of the table. Can I tell you something? My oldest son treated me wrong once too. He thought I was obligated to watch his kids every weekend, that I had no life of my own, that I was just there to serve. Until one day, I told him no. He got mad, insulted me, said I was selfish. You know what I did? I looked at her. What? She smiled. I kept saying no. And you know what happened? After a few months, he came back. He apologized. He said he had reflected. And today he treats me differently. With respect. That calmed me down a little. Because sometimes you need to hear from another person that you're not wrong, that you're not being cruel, that you're just setting boundaries. I finished my coffee and went for a walk around the ranch. Tony was out back, feeding the chickens, scattering corn on the ground. I walked over. Morning, man. He smiled. Morning. Did you sleep, or were you just thinking the whole time? I laughed a little. Both. We stood there talking about nonsense until he asked, So, what's the plan now? I leaned against the fence. I looked at the horizon. I don't know, Tony. Honestly, I don't know. I spent the whole morning thinking about that. What was the plan? What did I want? How far was I going to take this? Because, look, I'm not a fighter. I never was. I always avoided conflict. I always tried to keep the peace. But there are times when peace costs too much. There are times when you need to make some noise. And this was one of those times. I remembered so many things. I remembered when Marcus was 15 and I spent 3 straight months on the road, taking long routes to save up money to buy him the computer he wanted. I remembered when he turned 18, and I worked on Sundays to pay for his high school graduation party. I remembered when he got married, and Ruth and I gave half the money we had saved to help with the down payment on their apartment. And I remembered when Ruth was sick, in the hospital in her final days, and Marcus only showed up twice, 2 times. He said he had an important project at work, that he couldn't take time off. His mother was dying, and he had an important project. I sat down under a tree there on the ranch. The sun was hot, the wind was moving the leaves, and I started to cry. I cried quietly. I cried for everything I had held back, for everything I had swallowed, for all the times I accepted crumbs of attention from my own son. Because the truth, the painful truth, is that this story about the beach house wasn't an isolated incident. It was just one more. One more on the list of times he had put me second. One more on the list of times he had used me. One more on the list of times I didn't have the courage to say anything. I stayed there for I don't know how long until I heard Tony arrive. He sat down beside me. He didn't say anything. He just stayed there. After a while, he spoke. It hurts, doesn't it? I nodded my head. It hurts bad. He continued. It hurts because you love. If you didn't love, it wouldn't hurt. But Poppy, love without respect, it won't last. It won't last. I looked at him. Do you think I'm wrong? He shook his head. You're not wrong. You're right to show him. But now you need to decide. Are you just going to scare him, or are you going to teach him for real? That question kept hammering in my head for the rest of the day. Teach him for real. What was teaching him for real? Was it going back and making peace? Was it staying away until he understood? Was it saying everything I was feeling? I didn't know. I only knew that I was tired. Tired of being convenient. Tired of being remembered only when I was useful. Tired of being treated as if I had no feelings. In the afternoon, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Marcus. It was Jordan, my 12-year-old grandson. I answered. Hello, Grandpa. His voice was low, a little shy. Hey, Jordan, how are you? He took a while to answer. Grandpa, Dad's mad at you. Mom is too. They don't want me to call you, but I wanted to know why you're not here. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and told him the truth. Jordan, sometimes adults do things that hurt others, and when that happens, you need to stop and think. I didn't leave because I don't love you guys. I left because I deserve respect too. He stayed quiet. Then he asked, Are you coming back? I replied, I don't know, son. I don't know yet. I hung up and stared at the phone. This was affecting me more than I imagined, because it's one thing to have problems with your grown son, and another thing entirely to see the grandkids in the middle of it. They hadn't asked to be born into this family. They hadn't asked to be in this situation. But they were, and I was either part of the problem or part of the solution. I didn't know yet. Night came again. We ate dinner. I talked more with Tony and Ms. Della. They gave me support. They gave me refuge. They gave me peace. And that's exactly what made me realize something. I had true friends. People who took me in without an agenda. People who respected me without needing anything in return. And my own son wasn't doing that. Before bed, I typed out a message to Marcus. I didn't send it right away. I saved it in drafts, but I wrote it. Son, you called to inform me that you were going to spend a month in my house. You didn't ask. You didn't want to know if it was a good time. You didn't show interest in seeing me before. You just wanted to use the house. And when I didn't let you, you called me a disappointment. But the disappointment, Marcus, the disappointment is me because I raised a son who doesn't understand what respect is. I looked at the message, read it again, and hit send. After I sent that message, I lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling. My heart was racing. My hands were sweating because telling the truth hurts. Even when you're right, even when you're defending your own dignity, it hurts. It hurts because you know that on the other side is someone you love, someone you raised, someone who carries your blood. But sometimes you have to choose between being loved and being respected. And I had chosen to be respected. The phone stayed silent for a while. I thought Marcus wouldn't respond. I thought he would ignore it, stay angry, or block me. But then, around midnight, the phone lit up. A message from him. I picked it up, shaking a little, opened it, and what he had written knocked the wind out of me. Pop, you've always been like this. Always stubborn. Always had to be right. Mom was the one who put up with you. I can't take it anymore. Stay there with your arrogance. Stay alone. Because that's what you want, isn't it? To be alone. I read that 3 times. Always been like this. Stubborn. Arrogance. And worst of all, Mom was the one who put up with you. I sat up in bed, my breathing heavy, Because that wasn't just anger. It was malice. It was wanting to hurt on purpose. It was throwing Ruth's absence in my face, as if she had endured me instead of loved me, as if her marriage to me had been a burden. And in that moment, I wanted to call, to scream at him, to tell him everything I was feeling. But I didn't. Because if the road taught me anything, it's this. When you're angry, you say foolish things, you hurt people, you destroy things. So I breathed. I counted to 10 and simply turned off the phone. I barely slept that night. I kept tossing and turning, thinking about everything, thinking about Ruth, thinking about how sad she would be seeing this. She always used to say, "Poppy, Marcus is stubborn. You need to be patient with him." And I always was. But patience has a limit. Understanding has a limit. Everything has a limit. And mine had been crossed a long time ago. When morning came, I got up exhausted and went to the kitchen. Ms. Della was there again. She looked at me and immediately knew. "Bad night?" I sat at the table. "Terrible." She poured me coffee and served me a biscuit, then stayed there, waiting for me to talk. I told her about the message, about what Marcus had said about Ruth. When I finished, she shook her head. "That wasn't your son talking. That was his anger. That was his bruised pride." I looked at her. "But it hurt just the same." "Ms. Della." She nodded. "I know. And it's going to hurt more before it gets better. But you need to stay firm. Because if you go back now, if you apologize for something you didn't do, it'll be worse. It will teach him that he can disrespect you without consequence." I spent that entire Sunday in silence. Tony invited me to go fishing in the creek that ran behind the ranch. I accepted. We sat there on the water's edge, with our rods in our hands, barely talking, just enjoying the silence. And it was good. It was good because it reminded me that I didn't need much to be happy. I didn't need a big house. I didn't need recognition. I didn't even need a perfect family. I just needed peace and respect. Around 4 in the afternoon, we returned with a few perch we'd caught. Ms. Della fried them up deliciously with lemon. We ate on the porch, watching the sun set. And in that moment, I had a strange feeling. I felt a real, deep nostalgia for Ruth, the kind that squeezes your chest and makes you want to cry. Because if she were alive, none of this would have happened. She was the bridge between Marcus and me. She was the one who translated my silence, who explained my tough ways, who made Marcus understand me. And without her, we didn't even know how to talk to each other. That night, I turned on the phone again. There were more messages. One from Sasha. "Poppy, I don't want to get involved in your fight with Marcus, but the children are asking why their grandfather doesn't want to see them. I don't know what to tell them anymore." That squeezed my heart because she was right. The kids were innocent. But at the same time, I couldn't pretend everything was fine just for them. I had to resolve this with their father first. I responded to Sasha. "Tell the children that their grandfather loves them, but there are things adults need to resolve first. And this has nothing to do with them." Then came another message from Marcus. "Pop, we're leaving tomorrow. The vacation didn't work out. My in-laws were disappointed. The kids were too. I hope you're happy." I read it and didn't respond, because there was nothing to respond to. He was still playing the victim. He was still blaming me. And as long as he didn't understand his part in this story, we weren't going to get anywhere. I woke up Monday, and decided I was going to stay a few more days at the ranch. I wasn't in a hurry to go back. I wasn't in a hurry to face everything. I needed time. Time to think, time to reorganize myself. Time to decide what I was going to do next. But one thing was clear. Marcus and I were no longer father and son. Not in the way we should be. We were two people living in different worlds who only spoke out of politeness. I helped Tony on the ranch. I fixed fences, painted gates, and dug flower beds. Hard work that tires the body but calms the mind. And it was good. It was good to put my hands to work again, to feel that I was still useful, that I could still do things. Because getting old isn't just about your body changing. It's about your mind, too. You start to feel disposable, useless, a burden. And I didn't want to feel that way. I didn't want Marcus to make me feel that way. Late that afternoon, I sat with Tony on the porch. He lit a hand-rolled cigarette. I just watched the horizon until he asked, "Have you thought about what you're going to do?" I breathed deep. "I don't know, Tony. Part of me wants to call Marcus, ask him to talk. Another part wants to let him come looking for me, because I'm tired of always being the one who chases." He took a drag, let the smoke out slowly, and said, "You know what the problem is, Poppy? You spend your whole life teaching your children to be strong, independent, not to need you. And when they grow up and really don't need you anymore, you feel lost, because your whole identity was built on being dad. And then the question comes up, who am I without being his father?" That hit me because it was true. I had spent 42 years being Marcus's father, being the provider, the protector, the problem solver. And now I was just Elijah, the retired guy, the widower, the old man with the beach house. And that was scary. It was scary because I didn't know who that Elijah was without the weight of being dad. We stayed there talking until night fell. And when I went to sleep, for the first time in days, I was able to rest more peacefully because I had understood something. What was happening wasn't just about the beach house. It wasn't just about respect. It was about identity. It was about Marcus needing to learn that I wasn't just his dad. I was a person with desires, with boundaries, with dignity. And it was about me needing to learn that being a father didn't mean accepting just anything. It also meant knowing how to say no. On Tuesday morning, the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered hesitantly. "Hello?" On the other end, an older woman's voice. "Poppy?" I replied that it was. "This is Lord Winston, Marcus's mother-in-law, Sasha's mother." My body tensed up. What did she want? Why was she calling me? She continued. "Look, I know this isn't my business, but I needed to talk to you because I saw everything that happened. And I wanted you to know that I understand." I stayed silent. She went on. "You didn't do anything wrong. Marcus was the one who was disrespectful. My husband and I didn't know what to say when we got there and saw the house locked up. But later, when Sasha told me how the call went, how Marcus informed you instead of asking, I understood. And I told my husband, her father's right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My son's mother-in-law defending me. I thanked her. She said one more thing before hanging up. You didn't deserve to be treated like that, and I hope Marcus realizes that before it's too late. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in days, I smiled. That call from Mrs. Winston changed something inside me. I can't quite explain what, but it changed. Because until that moment, I had been feeling alone. I was feeling like everyone was on Marcus's side. Like I was the stubborn old man, the foolish old man who didn't understand anything. And then a person who barely knew me, who was my son's mother-in-law, comes along and tells me, "You're right." That was priceless. That was worth more than any forced apology. I told Tony and Ms. Della about the call. They were as surprised as I was. "See, Poppy, even the in-laws admit you're right." "That's something," Tony said. Ms. Della added, "And look, she wasn't obligated to call you. She did it because she wanted to, because she felt it was the right thing to do it." It was true. And that gave me a strength I hadn't expected to have. I spent that Tuesday feeling lighter. I helped Ms. Della in the garden. We harvested tomatoes, lettuce, and cilantro. Simple things that seem silly, but are good for the soul. In the afternoon, I went for a walk alone around the ranch. There was a dirt road that went up to a small hill, and from there you could see the little town below. I sat on a rock, looked at the landscape, and started thinking about Ruth again. Thinking about how she would react if she were alive. Would she be on my side? Would she tell me I overreacted? Or would she understand? I remembered a time years ago when Marcus was in his 20s. He had borrowed money. He said he would pay it back the next month. Ruth and I scraped together what we could and lent it to him. A month passed, then 2, then 3, and no sign of repayment. We never even charged him interest, because he was our son, right? But then his birthday came around, and he threw a party. He spent money on drinks, food, and decorations. And we were struggling because we had lent him the money. Ruth was sad. I remember her telling me, "Poppy, we need to teach Marcus that money doesn't grow on trees. He needs to have more responsibility." But I defended the boy. I said he was young, that he was still learning, and Ruth accepted it, because she always accepted. Now sitting on that hill, looking at nothing, I realized something. Ruth had been right all along. She saw the things I didn't want to see. She noticed Marcus's flaws that I ignored, and I didn't listen to her. I spent my life defending him, covering for him, always making excuses. And then Ruth died, and Marcus stayed the same. Only now she wasn't there to smooth things over. She wasn't there to be the bridge, and everything burst open all at once. I returned to the ranch as night was falling. Tony was building a campfire in the yard. "Come here, Poppy. Tonight, we're doing a little barbecue." I sat on a log near the fire, the smoke rising, the heat warming my face. And we stayed there, talking about life, about the years that had passed, about how the world had changed. It was a good night. One of those you keep in your memory. Before going to sleep, I decided to turn on the phone again. There was a message from Skylar, my granddaughter. "Grandpa, Dad said we're not going to your house anymore. Is it true? You don't love us anymore?" My heart squeezed, because that's what Marcus was doing. He was using the children. He was putting them in the middle. He was making them think I didn't love them anymore. I responded right away. "Skylar, your grandpa loves you more than anything in this world. What happened is between your dad and me. It has nothing to do with you. When everything is settled, we're going to see each other. You can be sure of that." Then came another message, this time from Jordan. "Grandpa, did you fight with Dad because of the house?" I sighed. I replied, "Jordan, it wasn't just about the house. It was about respect. You'll understand someday." He sent a heart emoji. And that made me feel that at least the kids still loved me. They still saw me as their grandfather, and not the villain their father was trying to paint. On Wednesday morning, I woke up with my mind made up. I was going back to Seabrook Island. Not because I was giving up, not because I was scared, but because I couldn't keep running forever. That was my house, my place, and I wasn't going to let Marcus take that from me. I told Tony. He understood. You're going back to do what? I thought for a moment. I'm going back to live my life. If Marcus wants to talk, we'll talk. If he doesn't, that's his problem. Tony smiled. Now you got it. Now you're on the right track. I packed my things. I thanked Miss Della for the hospitality, for the food, for the kindness. I hugged Tony tight. Thanks, man. You saved me. He patted my back. We saved each other, Poppy. I just gave you a place to find yourself. I got in the car, started the engine, and hit the road back home. The drive was calm. I thought about everything that had happened, everything that had changed in just a few days. I had left Seabrook Island feeling used, disrespected, and invisible. And now I was returning feeling firm, secure, and certain of my worth, because I had learned something important. I didn't need my son's approval to know I had value. I already had value. I always did. And if he couldn't see it, that was his problem, not mine. I arrived at Seabrook Island late that afternoon. The town was quiet as usual. Empty beach, cloudy sky. I parked the car in front of the house. I looked at the door, with the padlock I had put on myself, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt pride in having had the courage to stand up for myself. I took the key out of my pocket, opened the padlock, and went inside. The house was exactly as I had left it, silent, clean, intact. I opened the windows, let the air in, and started putting everything back in order. I ran a load of laundry, plugged in the fridge, went to the supermarket to buy some groceries. And little by little, I went back to my routine, back to my peace. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the ocean, the sound of the waves, the wind on my face, that smell of salt I loved so much. And I thought, this is why I bought this house, to have peace. And nobody was going to take that from me. I grabbed the phone, checked the messages. There was a new one from Sasha. Poppy, Marcus isn't doing well. He won't talk about what happened. He just stays quiet and moody. I think he's regretful, but he doesn't know how to say it. I just wanted you to know that. I read the message and didn't respond, because it wasn't the moment. If Marcus was regretful, he needed to come talk to me. He needed to apologize. He needed to acknowledge his mistake. I wasn't going to make things easy. Not this time. Because respect is earned, and he still had a long way to go. I settled into my routine for a few days. Morning walks on the beach, chats with the neighbors, playing dominoes at the community center, sunsets on the porch. That simple life I had dreamed of having. And you know what I realized? I didn't need a lot to be happy. I didn't need visitors all the time. I didn't need constant attention. I just needed peace and respect. On Saturday, a week after I returned, I was at the fish market buying fish when I ran into Mr. Charles, a neighbor who lived 3 houses down. "What's up, Poppy? You disappeared on us." I smiled. "I went to visit a friend." He leaned in, looking a little embarrassed. "Listen, I don't want to pry, but last week, a car with a family stopped by looking for your house. I thought they were relatives. They asked about you to Mr. Henderson, the neighbor across the street, man. When He told them you weren't here. They seemed a little lost. Then they left. I thanked him for the information. So, Marcus had come. He had arrived with the whole family, found the house locked, and left. I returned home with that information swirling in my head. And you know what I felt? Nothing. No anger, no pity, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. A strange emptiness, because part of me had expected him to react, differently, to understand, to come back to apologize. Not to just use the house. But no, he just wanted what he always wanted, an advantage. That night, I sat on the porch again, but this time with a different feeling. A feeling that something had changed forever. And it had changed because a rift had opened between Marcus and me, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. A week passed, then two, and nothing. No message from Marcus, no call, nothing. It was as if we had agreed on a silence, a heavy silence, the kind that hurts more than any fight. Because at least in a fight, you're communicating. In silence, you're just giving up. I kept up my routine. Walks, fish market, beach, neighbors. But there was something different now. There was a weight, an emptiness. Because no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that everything was fine, that I had done the right thing, it still hurt. It hurt to know that my son had turned his back on me. It hurt to think that maybe we would never have a real relationship again. And it hurt, above all, to think that my grandchildren would grow up distant from me. One Thursday afternoon, I was on the porch when a lady walked by with a little boy about 5 years old. The boy had a toy car in his hand, and he was showing it to his grandmother, all excited. "Look, Grandma, look how fast it goes." And she, so patient, knelt down, looked at it, and acted impressed. I watched that and felt a pang in my chest. Because I wanted to have that with my grandchildren. I wanted them to come show me their toys. I wanted to hear them call me Grandpa. I wanted to be a part of their lives. But because of their father's pride, because of his stubbornness, it was being taken away from me. I went inside the house, sat on the sofa, and for the first time since everything started, I thought about giving in. I thought about calling Marcus and saying, "Son, let's forget this. Come here, bring the kids, let's talk." But then I remembered his message. I remembered the part about Mom was the one who put up with you. I remembered the disrespect, and the urge left me because giving in wouldn't solve anything. It would just teach him that he could treat me badly every time, and I would eventually accept it. On Saturday, I went to the community center to play dominoes with the fellas. There was Mr. Armando, Ms. Cleo, Osvaldo, and Paul. People my age, retirees who gathered there every weekend. We played, we talked we laughed, and it was good. It was simple, and it was sincere. In the middle of the game, Armando asked, "So, Papi, when's your son coming to visit you?" The table went quiet. Everyone knew it was a sensitive topic. I breathed deep. "I don't know, Armando. I don't know if he's coming." He realized he had hit a nerve. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." I shook my head. "It's fine. We're a little distant right now." Ms. Cleo, a lady in her 70s, a widow too, looked at me with a knowing look. "Kids are complicated, aren't they, Papi? You raise them thinking they'll be grateful. And sometimes—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Everyone there knew. Everyone there had a story about ungrateful children, distant children, children who only called when they needed something. It was sad, but it was real. I returned home that afternoon, with an even heavier weight, because seeing that I wasn't alone, that there were other seniors going through the same thing, didn't comfort me. It saddened me more. It saddened me because it showed that this was common, that people get old this way, alone, forgotten, only remembered when it's convenient. And I didn't want to accept that. I didn't want to become a statistic. Early Sunday morning, the phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered. Hello? On the other end, the voice of Mr. Winston, Sasha's father and Lord's husband. Poppy, good morning. This is Ernest. We met briefly that day in Seabrook. I replied that I remembered him. He continued. Look, I know this isn't my business, but Lord's asked me to call you. Marcus is being very stubborn. He doesn't want to talk to you. He doesn't want to apologize. And we're seeing how much this is affecting the kids, Sasha, and you too. I stayed quiet. He went on. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. And I told Marcus so. I told him he was arrogant, that he was disrespectful, but he's proud, very proud, and he's drowning in it. I asked, and what do you want me to do, Mr. Winston? He sighed. I don't know. I just wanted you to know that not everyone is against you. And if it's up to Lords and me, we'll keep telling Marcus that he's wrong. I thanked him. I hung up and thought about it. My son's father-in-law calling me to support me. That was so unusual. It almost seemed like a joke, but it was true. And that showed me something. The problem wasn't me, it was Marcus. He was the one who had to change. He was the one who had to grow up. He was the one who had to learn. I spent that Sunday reflecting on everything. And Monday came. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard the front gate squeak. I looked through the window. It was Skylar, my granddaughter, all alone, with a small backpack on her back. My heart leaped. I ran out. I opened the door. Skylar, what are you doing here? She looked at me, with those big eyes full of tears. Grandpa, I ran away from home. I took the bus by myself. I wanted to see you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked out at the street, searching for adults, searching for someone. But there was no one. Just her, a 9-year-old girl who had taken the bus alone, traveling from Memphis to Seabrook Island. Over 600 miles alone. My God. I knelt down to her height, grabbed her shoulders. Skylar, does your mom know you're here? She shook her head. No, nobody knows. I left early this morning. I said I was going to my friend's house, but I came here. Tears started falling. Grandpa, why don't you love us anymore? My heart broke. I hugged her tight and whispered in her ear, That's not true, Skylar. I love you. I love you so much. She sobbed. Then why won't you come home? Why can't we go to your house anymore? I took a deep breath. I held back the tears that were coming, because in that moment, I realized the extent of the damage this fight had caused. It wasn't just between Marcus and me. It was affecting everyone, especially the children. I took her inside. I gave her water. I sat with her on the sofa and explained in the simplest words I could. Skylar, what happened is not your fault or Jordan's fault. It's something between your dad and me, and we're going to fix it. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. She looked at me. But Grandpa, Dad said you're selfish, that you only think about yourself. That cut me deep. It cut me to the core because Marcus was turning his own children against me. He was poisoning them. I grabbed the phone and called Marcus. No answer. I called again. Again. No answer. On the fourth try, he picked up. His voice was dry. What? Marcus, Skylar is here. Taitsum is on the other end. What do you mean she's there? I replied. She took the bus alone. She came to visit me. You didn't even know your daughter had left the house. I heard him shouting on the other side. I heard Sasha in the background, hysterical. I heard Jordan asking what was going on. And in the middle of all that confusion, Marcus yelled at me, "Are you crazy for letting her come alone?" I exploded. Am I crazy? She came because she misses her grandpa, because you're putting it in her head that I don't love her anymore. You're destroying everything, Marcus. Everything. He yelled back. I didn't let her come. She ran away because they're poisoning her, because they're putting it in her head that her grandpa doesn't love her anymore. I hung up in his face because there was nothing more to say. Not in that moment. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard, I felt like it would jump out of my chest. I sat down on a kitchen chair, breathing deep, trying to calm down. Skylar was in the living room, scared by all the arguing. I went over to her, knelt down to her height again. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm sorry for yelling. It wasn't at you. She hugged me tight. Grandpa, I don't want you and Dad to fight. I stroked her hair. Me neither, my love. Me neither. I made her a sandwich. Ham and cheese, orange juice, simple things. She sat on the sofa, knitting slowly. Quiet. I stayed there watching her, thinking. How did a 9-year-old girl have the courage to do something like that? To take the bus alone? Travel hundreds of miles? Come all the way here? It could only be desperation. The desperation of a girl who felt she was losing her grandfather. While she ate, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Marcus. Sasha. Marcus again. Sasha again. I didn't answer until a landline number called. I answered. It was Sasha crying. Pop E, please, how is she? I answered calmly. She's fine, she's eating, she's safe. She sobbed. I was hysterical. I thought something had happened to her. That someone had taken her. I understood her desperation. Sasha, breathe. She's here with me. Nothing is going to happen to her. She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Marcus wants to come get her right now. I looked at Skylar. It's fine. Tell them to come. I hung up and looked at my granddaughter. She had stopped eating. She looked at me fearfully. Grandpa, are they going to yell at me? I knelt down to her height. No, Skylar. They'll be worried. They'll be upset. But they won't yell at you because they love you. And when you love someone, you're scared to lose them. She nodded, but she still looked uncertain. Are you going to fight with Dad when he gets here? I thought about the answer. No, we've fought enough. Now it's time to talk. I spent the next 3 hours waiting. Skylar stayed on the sofa watching cartoons on TV. I stayed on the porch looking at the gate, my heart racing, because I knew that when Marcus arrived, it was going to be difficult. It was going to be tense. But at the same time, it was the opportunity for us to finally talk truthfully. Without messages. Without the phone. Face to face. Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, a car stopped in front of the house. It was him. He got out quickly. Sasha too. Jordan came with them. Marcus didn't even look at me. He headed straight for the door. I opened it before he could knock. Skylar got up from the sofa and ran into her mother's arms. Sasha hugged her, crying. My God, Skylar, are you okay? Don't ever do that again. Skylar was crying too. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry. Marcus stood in the middle of the living room, staring at me fixedly. I just stood there too. Neither of us said anything until Jordan broke the silence. Hi, Grandpa. His voice was low, shy. I looked at him, opened my arms, and he came. He came running and hugged me. I squeezed him tight, and it was in that moment that I realized how much I had missed him. That smell of a child, that sincere hug, that pure love that only a grandchild knows how to give. Sasha stood up with Skylar in her arms. She looked at me. "Thank you for taking care of her, Pop E." I nodded my head. "She's my granddaughter. I'll always take care of her." She understood. She looked at Marcus. "I'll wait with the kids in the car." She took both children and left. She closed the door. It was just him and me, face to face. After weeks. The silence was long and heavy until he spoke. "See what this all led to? My daughter ran away from home because of you." I breathed deep. "I'm not going to get into that, Marcus. She didn't run away because of me. She ran away because she misses her grandpa. Because you put it in her head that I don't love her anymore." He clenched his fists. "And that's not true. You disappeared. You locked the house. You turned your back on us." I took a step forward. "No, I set a boundary. There's a difference." He let out a sarcastic laugh. "Boundary? You call that a boundary? You humiliated me, Pop, in front of my family, in front of my in-laws." I looked him in the eye. "And did you respect me when you called to inform me that you were bringing people to spend a month here? When you ordered me to leave the key with the neighbor, as if I were the doorman? Did you respect me?" He looked away. He didn't answer. I continued. "You never came to visit me, Marcus. Not once since I bought this house. Not one time. But when you needed a free beach house, that's when you remembered I exist." He countered, "I work, Pop. I have a family. I have responsibilities." I shook my head. "And I didn't have them? Do you think it was easy raising you? Do you think it was easy being away from home, driving that truck just to put food on the table? But I did it. I did it because it was my duty. It was my love. And you can't even make one visit." He stayed quiet. I saw his jaw tremble. I saw his eyes well up. And for the first time in a long time, I saw him for who he was. The little boy I used to hold in my arms. The boy who was afraid to sleep alone. The boy I loved more than anything. But that boy had grown up. He had become a man I no longer recognized. "Pop," he started, his voice breaking. I know I messed up. I know I disrespected you, but I didn't expect this from you. I didn't expect you to make me feel so small." I looked at him. "I didn't make you feel small, Marcus. You made yourself feel that way because you knew you were wrong. And instead of owning up to it, instead of apologizing, you attacked me. You accused me. You used your mother's memory against me." He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. "I shouldn't have said that. It was low." "It was," I agreed. "But it's what you felt. And that tells me a lot about how you see me." He shook his head. "That's not true. I was just angry, shamed, scared." I looked at him, surprised. "Scared of what?" He took a deep breath, sat on the sofa, put his hands over his face, and began to speak. "Scared of admitting that I am just like what I always criticized. You know how many times I felt like you paid attention to other things and not me? How many times you'd come home from a trip and go straight to sleep? How many times I wanted to talk to you and you were too tired? I promised myself that when I had kids, I would be different. I would be present. And then Then I realize I'm doing the same thing, only with you. I abandon you. I ignore you. I use you when it's convenient. And when you showed me that, when you locked that house, I had to face the truth. I'm a terrible son. I stood there, processing that, because I didn't expect it. I didn't expect him to admit it. I didn't expect him to open up like that. I sat down next to him. Marcus, I know I wasn't the perfect father. I know I failed in many things, but everything I did was out of love. It was to give you what I didn't have. And if you felt a lack of attention, if you felt I wasn't present, I apologize. Truly. He looked at me, his eyes red. And I apologize, Pop, for the disrespect, for the arrogance, for using you, for making you feel like you don't matter. Because you do matter. You matter a lot. His voice broke. I don't know how to fix this. I put my hand on his shoulder. You fix it by starting over, with honesty, with respect, and most of all, with presence. He nodded. He wiped his face, and for the first time in a long time, we hugged. A real hug, one that hurt, but also healed. When we separated, he looked around. This is a nice house, Pop. I should have come to see it sooner. I should have visited you. I smiled. There's still time. The door is always open, but next time, you ask first. He let out a tired laugh. Deal. We went out to the porch. We sat down, watched the ocean, and stayed there in silence. A different kind of silence. A light silence of peace, of a new beginning, until he spoke. The kids want to spend a weekend here. Can they? I looked at him. Sure, but just the kids. He smiled. No, us too. If you'll have us. I shook my head. I'll always have you. But no in-laws for now, okay? He laughed. Deal. We stayed a little longer talking about life, about mistakes, about what we could do differently. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a complete happy ending, but it was a beginning. And sometimes that's all you need. A beginning. They left at the end of that afternoon. Before leaving, Marcus hugged me again. It wasn't that quick, obligatory, protocol hug. It was a genuine embrace, one that felt like it had real feeling behind it. The children hugged me too. Skylar didn't want to let go. Grandpa, promise we'll come back. I held her face. I promise. And next time, you don't have to run away to come see me. Okay? She smiled. That little girl's smile that makes everything worthwhile. When the car disappeared around the corner, I went back inside the house. I sat on the sofa and breathed. I took a deep breath, as if I had finally let go of a weight I had been carrying for a long time. It had been hard. It had hurt. But it had been worth it. Because now, there was hope. Hope that things could be different. That we could rebuild what had been broken. The following days were strange. Good. But strange. Because I wasn't used to having hope. I was used to accepting that Marcus was just distant and busy. But now he was sending texts. He was asking how I was. He was sending pictures of the kids. Simple things, but they made a difference. And I responded. I didn't hold on to resentment. I didn't wait for him to always take the first step. We were both trying. That a Friday, he called me. Pop, we were thinking of coming down Saturday, just for the day. Is that all right? I felt my heart warm. Sure, son. What time will you get here? He said they would arrive in the morning. He asked if I needed them to bring anything. I said no. that I would prepare everything. And when I hung up, I stayed there, holding the phone with a smile on my face, because he had been the one who called. He had been the one who asked. He had been the one who showed interest. And that meant so much. I woke up early Saturday. I went to the market. I bought steaks, salad greens, and sodas for the kids. I bought those cookies that Skylar likes. I returned home, cleaned everything, tidied the rooms, and made sure everything was organized. Because I wanted them to feel welcome. I wanted them to feel that this house was theirs too. Not in the sense of using it, but in the sense of belonging. They arrived around 10 in the morning. The children jumped out of the car, running. "Grandpa!" I hugged them both. Jordan was growing fast, almost my height. Skylar, still small, was full of energy. Marcus and Sasha came behind, carrying a few bags. "We brought some things," Sasha said. I thanked them. We went inside. It was a good day. We sat on the porch. We talked. We laughed. The kids went to play on the beach. Marcus and I stayed there, drinking coffee, watching them from afar, and he said, "Pop, I thought a lot this week about everything that happened, and I realized one thing. I never thanked you. I never gave you credit for everything you did for me, for college, for the car, for the support. I always thought it was an obligation, but it wasn't. It was love." I looked at him. "Son, a father doesn't do things expecting thanks. He does them because he wants to, because he loves." He shook his head. "I know, but still, thank you. Really." I got emotional. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to acknowledge it. I put my hand on his shoulder. "You're welcome, Marcus, and thank you too for coming back, for giving us a chance to fix this." He smiled that crooked, half-shy smile he'd had since he was a kid. And in that moment, I saw the boy he used to be again. Only now, I also saw the man he had become, and it was okay because he was trying. And that's what mattered. We had a barbecue at noon, me on the grill, Marcus helping me, the kids running around the yard, Sasha setting the table. It looked like a real family. One of those you see on TV and think only exists there. But it was happening at my house, with my family, and it was real. In the afternoon, after eating, we sat on the porch again. We had ice cream. The kids talked about school, about their friends. Jordan said he wanted to learn to fish. I promised him we would next time. Skylar asked if she could sleep over one night. I looked at Marcus. He looked at Sasha. They nodded. "You can, but only when you come for the whole weekend." Skylar got excited. "Really? We're going to spend the whole weekend here?" Marcus confirmed. "Yeah, if Grandpa lets us." I looked at him. "I'll always let you." They left late that afternoon. And this time was different. I didn't have that feeling of emptiness. I didn't have that loneliness that always came when someone left, because I knew they would return. I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, something better. The following days, we kept talking. He sent messages, I responded. We coordinated things. We made plans, and little by little, we got closer again. It wasn't like before, because before wasn't healthy, but it was different. It was more genuine, more respectful, and more present. And today, when I look back at everything that happened, from that call from Marcus until now, I understand something. I didn't lock that house out of revenge. I didn't lock it out of anger. I locked it because I needed to. I needed to respect myself. I needed to show that I still had worth, that I wasn't just the old man with the beach house. I was Elijah Stone, a man who worked his whole life, who raised a son who lost his wife, who started over, and who deserved to be treated with dignity. Many people judged me when they heard the story. They said I was cruel, that I used the children, that I overreacted. And maybe I did overreact. Maybe there was another way to resolve it. But in that moment, with the pain I felt, with the disrespect I received, that was the only way I found to make myself heard. And it worked. Not in the way I expected, not in the easiest way, but it worked. Marcus changed. He didn't become a different person. He didn't become the perfect son I always dreamed of having. But he became a present son. A son who calls, who visits, who asks, who cares. And that is already more than I had. It's more than a lot of people have. Because there are fathers out there who died without ever hearing an apology from their child. There are fathers who died alone, forgotten, waiting for a visit that never came. And I had the opportunity to fix things, to rebuild, to start over. And I thank God for that every day. The beach house is still my peace, my refuge, my place. But now it's also a place for good memories, for children's laughter, for family barbecues, for conversations on the porch. It became what I always wanted it to be. A home, not just mine, but for the whole family. Because in the end, you don't build a house to live in alone. You build it to share, but to share with respect, with love, and with truth. I miss Ruth every day. I look at that photo Marcus gave me, and I see her smile, and I imagine what she would say about all of this. I think she'd say, "Poppy, you took your time, but you learned." Because she always said that I was stubborn, that I took a long time to learn things, but that when I learned for real. And she was right. It took me 68 years to understand that I deserved respect too. That I also had the right to say no. That I could set boundaries. But I learned. And I taught. I taught my son, my grandchildren, and who knows, maybe whoever is listening to me now. Because if there is one message I want to leave, it's this. Respect is not something you ask for. It's something you demand. Not with violence, not with malice, but with firmness and with dignity. And if you don't respect yourself, no one else will respect you. If you accept crumbs, crumbs are all you'll get. And you deserve more. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be loved. For real. Not just when it's convenient. Getting old isn't easy. You lose strength, you lose speed, you lose people. But you cannot lose your dignity. You cannot let them treat you as disposable, as a burden, as a nuisance. Because you still have value. You still have a history. You still have love to give. And whoever doesn't see that, let them learn it the hard way, if necessary. This is my story. The story of the old man who locked his house, who disappeared, who caused an uproar, but who, in the end, taught a lesson. He taught that respect is fundamental, that family is important, but that family without respect is not family. It's just people living close by. And that you deserve more. You always did. If this story touched you in some way, comment down below. Tell me if you've been through something similar. If you also felt used. If you also had to set boundaries, because we need to talk about this. We need to show that we're not alone, that there are other seniors, other parents, other grandparents going through the same thing, and that defending your own dignity is okay. It's more than okay. It's necessary. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. With that distant child, with that father who is suffering in silence, with that grandparent who feels forgotten. Because sometimes a story like this can change something. It can wake someone up. It can save a relationship. It can save a life. And if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening to me, for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, to share my pain, and also my victory. Because in the end, I won. I didn't win the fight. I won against indifference. I won against disrespect. And I reclaimed my place, my value, and my dignity. And that, nobody will ever take that from me again.